come now to artificial intelligence. If you watch my show, you know we do a lot about this because I think it's part of our lives, whether we want to admit it or not. Universal credit, let's talk about that. 5.9 million people in the UK use universal credit. Do you know how this is assessed? Do you realize, you remember the old days when somebody with a pen and pencil would sit there and work it all out? Artificial intelligence, apparently. So the Guardian brought up, I think, a brilliant story. The UK has actually been warned over lack of transparency on the use of artificial intelligence when it comes to vetting welfare claims. I'm guessing humans can pick up nuances, can computers? The UK government risks contempt of court unless it improves its response to requests for transparency over the use of AI to vet welfare claims. This is according to the Information Commissioner. And child poverty campaigners have said the impact on children of the AI tools could be devastating if benefits are suspended. This comes from the Information Commissioner, John Edwards. He's now warned that the DWP, it could be in contempt of court unless it changes its approach and spells out within 35 days. So we're going to stay on top of this. 35 days, the terms under which it could release more information, because the Guardian asked, how is this done? How does your AI work out whether somebody's eligible for benefits or not? And what happens if the AI gets it wrong? What happens if you dispute? You're not disputing it with a human being. I'm guessing you're disputing it with a computer says no. Remember that skit? It's no longer a skit. It might be real life. Joining me now is Andrew Eborn, who's a barrister, broadcaster, and futurist. Andrew, thank you for joining me. Yeah, as I said before, once upon a time, you could, if you had an issue with anything, like, you know, your benefits in any shape or form, you could ring up and talk to a person, maybe the person who made the actual decision. AI running things puts an altogether different spin on things, doesn't it? Or does it?
Absolutely right, Trisha. And it's a joy to join you again. You and me both were advocates for AI and how it's going to change our lives. And I always say it's tremendous threats, but also various opportunities as well. And what happens, a great story from The Guardian about the extent to which AI is being used basically to facilitate the process. And there's two ways you can report it. You can either turn around and say, it is fantastic, it's making it super efficient, or you can turn around and say, well, hang about, we want to know what information that AI is using to make sure that it doesn't have problems. And the problem is this, it's not about making people trust AI, it's making AI trustworthy. And there's been so many cases about hallucinations where basically AI can make things up. And there's a defamation case which is going on at the moment where ChatGPT, the creators of that, are being sued by a radio host who was falsely accused of embezzlement, for example. There's been a mayor in Australia accused of sexual assault and so on and so forth. And again, that was entirely false. So what we want to try and do is work out to what extent information is being used and to make sure that that information is correct. And The Guardian quite rightly raised concerns to say, okay, where is this information? We've got the right to know basically what's said about us and held on a government institution. That's why we have the Freedom of Information Act, so if you like, to turn around and say, give us that to make sure that makes sense. And working in a vacuum, what happens is people get scared. And you were talking about fear earlier on. The biggest fear is what they said, the father of PR, Edward Bernays, say, if you want to sell anything, you sell it through fear. And I think that's the biggest human emotion. But working in a vacuum where you don't get that information, how various things are processed, could make it very, very dangerous.
Yeah, as I said, children's campaigners are worried as well. And I guess, well, AI is only as good as the information it gets, but it can still make mistakes. This is, I'm like I said, that's why I do so many stories on artificial intelligence. When it's good, it's very, very good. But when it goes wrong, You want answers. Who do you go to? Whom do you go? I mean, it's going to be an interesting one. Who do you sue? Who do you sue?
It is interesting, and as I say, ChatGPT, the owners of that, OpenAI, they are in fact being sued as the creator of the AI. But the thing is this: is the story is like a half story at the moment, because we haven't had evidence that the results that it's producing are incorrect. And
because
what
we
I
don't
would say
know
is,
anything. We don't know anything.
exactly, and that's the problem. So working in a vacuum, we're assuming, Trisha, that it is going to be incorrect. So what we need to know, how is this working? And the PR machine should get out there and say, look, what we're trying to do is make this whole process much simpler for people, because that's the power of AI. And every day there are tremendous stories about how AI can basically facilitate the whole process, speed up all these lengthy procedures and so on and so forth. And that's what we need to look at. So that information should be released. Tell us how it works, because then we can get confidence that the system is working correctly.
So, Andrew, answer me this. If there's not just going to be with benefits, I'm guessing across lots and lots of government departments, it's all AI has already been used, starting to be used in in immigration and what have you. But when you've got a problem, I mean, before, you know, that old, what was it, computer says no from Little Britain.
Little Britain, there we go.
Remember that?
Yes.
But when any department that uses AI, anything at all, if you've got an issue with it and you ring up, I mean, we used to complain about your complaint being taken up by a call center in outer Mars or something like that. To whom do you speak? If there's an issue with the information that's gone into AI, if you ring up and actually get a human, they're going to be looking at the same incorrect information. I mean, I'm just interested to know, nobody's really spoken about what the complaint system may be when AI is used.
Well, and it's a really, really good point. And as always on your program, you get right to the heart of the issue. And that's the great thing about this, Trisha, is that what happens, we need to know what happens. I can tell you what should happen, because the machine will make it more efficient. And what it is, AI is a tool. It doesn't mean we're 100% reliant on it. It should mean that the humans basically use that in the correct way to facilitate various processes. Let's make sure it's more efficient and so on and so forth. And I would say as a result of that, they need a PR exercise. They need to turn around and say, look, artificial intelligence, this is how we're using it. We're using it to make things more efficient for people, so you can get your money, if you're entitled to it, quicker. The other thing we're going to do is, if you're not entitled to it or you're fraudulent, we're going to find that out quicker as well. And I think that's the way to do it.
I was going to say the big problem is when you obfuscate, when you sort of, dodge the answers and what have you, it increases suspicion about which, it's fairly new, about which there's a lot of suspicion anyway. And AI, I'm just thinking in other areas like banking and what have you, the recent case, well, people are now discovering left, right and centre, they might have been turned down for a bank account for all sorts of reasons. Anything like that. But in the future, if it's AI making those decisions, will there ever be a day when AI is what answers you at the end of the phone? It's got to be. I mean, here in the States, already here, if you've got a doctor's appointment, it's an AI thing that rings you up and sends you a message that you've got a doctor's appointment. I think all doctors should use it.
And it's better than that, because what happens, it can actually do, and this is the thing to be really scared about, it can do it in a voice that you recognize. It can do it so you've actually fooled computers, have basically fooled humanity into believing they're dealing with a real person. And that's the idea. You can pick the sort of voice that you think you're working with. And the biggest area, I think one of the scariest areas, is in the whole thing about identity theft. Because now we looked at, we had Trump, the fake Trump, we've had various people, we talk about the Pope in a puffer jacket. You remember the devil might like Prada, but the Pope prefers puffer. You work on that sort of basis. And there are so many fake things. There's a wonderful one I'd urge you to go and have a look at as well, where Johnny Cash is singing the Barbie song. It's brilliant, but obviously it's entirely fake. And you're working on that sort of premise where basically you can replicate anybody's voice. And I think one of the biggest, scariest moments is what's going to happen about identity theft. You might get an email moment where people text, say it's a relative and they're stranded somewhere, remote place, please send money. I haven't got my phone, it's a different phone, and so on and so forth. It's going to get worse. And there have been cases where you think it's their real person because it's their voice, it's their image, and so on and so forth. The positive side to that, though, Trisha, is, well, this week, as I say, there are great stories and danger stories. This week, we heard about a paralysed woman who's been shut away for, I think, 15 years.
Yeah, I saw that, so she could talk.
Isn't that wonderful? And she could only basically communicate with her eyes, picking out words, which is incredibly slow. What happened is they put a brain scanner on, and they basically could replicate her image with sort of wonderful avatar. They could replicate her voice from previous recordings, and basically the mapping of the brain could work out what she wanted to say really, really quickly. And also that particular part of the brain, because it's brilliant, can also tell you about facial expressions. So AI there has been tremendous in opening up a world for her.
It absolutely is, and we've heard all sorts of things like, you know, we were talking about on this show before. Could you one day have the $6 million man? We used to watch that, remember, with Lee Majors.
Oh, I do. I love that.
Yeah, showing our age now, but but now it's becoming more and more. There's somebody who was paralysed who's being helped to walk, with AI sending signals to the brain that his nerves no longer can do. So there are lots of pluses, but on the whole subject of identity theft, now, post-COVID, we're doing a lot more Zooming and talking to people. So surely, well, the day must be already here when, if anything needs to be backed up, you Zoom somebody. How do you know? How will we know we are looking at the real person and not an AI-generated person? Because you mentioned about just...
And the real answer is you don't. And we're all Zoomed, I can tell you, as he used to say in Dad's Army. So you work on that sort of basis. And they've shown already, there are videos where you can basically replicate a person. I'm an AI at the moment, it's not me at all, but you work on that sort of principle. So what happens is exactly that. And because it's over a screen, we can replicate a person. So you think that you're dealing with a real image of somebody, but actually it could be entirely different. And Warner's, for example, I've talked about this in the entertainment business, Warner's have just signed the first virtual digital artist called Nunari, I think her name is. And she's got a song called Dominoes. Check that out. And just
so she doesn't. She's not real. She's not real
at all. And it's going to go on in perpetuity. You won't have problems about riders or things like that. And you can have a look at that sort of basis. And it's quite a catchy song. Do listen to it.
Yeah, but here's the thing. As we know with the actors' strike and what have you, that, you know, the old days of extras, is that going to go? Bit parts, is that going to go? I mean, and you know, Rishi Sunak talking about Britain being the hub for legislation not everybody's based in the UK. Not everybody's going to say this is not real on the screen. And naughty people can get hold of it. We already know in Russia and the Ukraine war, for instance, that I was reading about the people making the most money out of the Ukraine war are Russian vloggers and bloggers, advertising their costs a fortune, and they do these whole things of from the front line and what have you, with the Ukraine purporting to be on the front line, purporting for certain things to happen, which of course the viewership doesn't know if it's real or not, and they're making a shed load of money.
Oh, and it's worse than that. You see, there is a video out there of Zelensky surrendering to Putin and so on and so forth. So my advice to everybody is question everything. We're living in a very diseased information world, and it's going to get worse. And to Rishi Sunak's credit, I went along to the AI summit earlier this year on the 1st and 2nd of November at Bletchley Park, the home of where they cracked the Enigma code. They're going to be holding the first World AI Safety Summit. And that people around the world have been invited to come along and contribute to that, to basically look at the threats and the opportunities, but also what we might do as a collective organisation.
Yeah, I've got to say, though, China's been excluded from some parts of that conference, which holds up another thing. Well, I know we're going to talk again in person, one hopes, not using AI.
I love it. I love your stripy look. I wore the red tie. It matches my eyes. It goes really well. It's got to be good.
I'm playing Where's Wally. It's the real me, I promise you. And your Eborn.
Lovely to see you as always.
Thank you, Andrew Eborn there, barrister and broadcaster there. We've got a message. Hi, Trisha, about AI, artificial intelligence in social services. The last thing we want is another post office-like scandal. That's from Ernest. See, I'm with you, Ernest. You know it's going to happen, don't you? You know it's going to happen. You know, and I don't believe that any government is as far ahead as they like. I mean, when you think about it, what they were trying to get into Boris Johnson's WhatsApp account, they couldn't get into that. I'm sorry, if you can't get into a WhatsApp account, how are you standing on artificial intelligence? More to come after this.